G'day everybody, welcome to Pints with Aquinas. I have a big giveaway that I'm doing this month to try to get more support for the channel and all that we plan on doing this year. You've probably seen this Pints with Aquinas beer stein. This month, January, and this month only, we will be giving this beer stein away for free to anybody who becomes an annual supporter over at mattfradd.locals.com. When you join mattfradd.locals.com right now, you'll get access to free audiobooks, exclusive podcasts. You'll have the ability to ask my guests questions. You'll also get access to our quarterly newspaper that's sent to your front door called The Jill. And we even pay the shipping for that one, by the way, whether you live in Australia or wherever. So we're really excited about that. We have a lot of big things coming up this year that I can't yet reveal, but it's going to cost a lot of money. And so one of the ways to make sure that we can do these things is by your support, quite frankly. So please become a local supporter. Sign up on your desktop or laptop, not on your phone, please. When you do that, we'll have a pinned post to the top of Locals showing you how to get this free beer stein. And again, this free beer stein is only for people who become annual supporters in January. You just have to pay shipping, but we'll send it wherever. So if you live in Europe or Australia or China, we can send it there to you as well. Huge thank you. I think Locals is actually social media. It's kind of what social media should have been, but never became. So when you join us over on Locals, you're not just getting those free perks that I spoke about. You're also joining a online community of like-minded Catholics who kind of give each other the benefit of the doubt and ask for prayers and share their struggles. It's been really quite beautiful. So thank you to those who would consider supporting mattfradd.locals.com. And if you can't do that, you could at least subscribe. So please subscribe, hit the bell button. Thanks so much. Thrsday is one of the coolest people I've ever met.
No, I'm so grateful. I got to in person meet him the other day. Actually, I doubled back so I could go say hi, shake his hand.
Yeah, he's still single, ladies, so it might not be the feminine thing to do, but still, you could just go up to him and say, "What are you doing?" And he might. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good.
Yeah, I think so. How are you doing?
I
mean, not like that. Not in this Joey way.
I also think that I'm doing well.
Yeah.
Whenever people say, like, "What's going on?" I'm like, it's way too much. But,
yeah.
But I am well.
It is one of those, just like, I don't know how to answer that question. I mean, typically, even if it was like you and I talking about this, like, how are you doing? Like, I don't know. I mean, I think things are going well. I think I'm trying to do God's will.
Yeah.
There's times where it's just like a little bit overwhelming, but at the same time, I'm not going to complain because it's good. Just, I think good doesn't always mean not hard.
Yeah.
Things are going well.
I wonder if you have this reaction. When people come up to me and they say, "Hey, you're doing good work," I'm like, I don't know if that's true.
I don't know if that's true.
I hope so.
Yeah. No, yeah, me too. Always. And then there's, man. Yeah, it's a tough one.
How are you feeling health-wise?
Well, I'm on the upswing of a little illness. I brought it up a couple times over the course of this week, but at Christmas time, I got to go home with my family, which is awesome. And my family is a cesspool of germs. Okay. And so
a lot of little kids.
The entire time I was like, this is great. Like, I am impervious to this illness that they all have. And then the day I left, I woke up and I'm like, oh,
I am not impervious.
What happened? Oh, I've succumbed.
Yeah.
And so then I had to wait. Actually, it was a blessing because I got to, I was going to go do a bunch of more stuff. And I had to just go back to Duluth, and I put a sign on the door saying, basically, Father Mike's sick, stay away. And got to just pray and be sick and just rest a bit.
When I put that sign on my door, the kids
don't do
listen.
it. See, that's the thing.
Very frustrating.
Also, I could do that because it was break still. If it wasn't break, they'd still be knocking, which is fine, because that's how it goes.
What are you doing? I think you said you're 4 days into some resolution, or what are you doing?
It's day 4, January 4th. So I have a brother. I have a couple of brothers, but one brother who said, hey, you know what I'm going to do this, starting January 1st, I'm going to go back to intermittent fasting, and I'm going to have a alcohol-free January.
Good for him.
And I was like, nice. And then I let it go. Because last time I was with you, on your show, I was like maybe, 2 years into intermittent fasting. I'd been doing it consistently. It was great. And then there was this nutrition challenge at our gym. And I was like, I'm not getting enough protein. So in order to get enough protein, I need to eat all day, kind of a situation. So I fell off the intermittent fasting, tried to start it up again. I'm like, this is hard. And so then I texted my brother and said, Mark, I'm in. So I'm going to do the intermittent fasting, no alcohol this January. And so that's what we're doing. Now, because of that, I may I may do carnivore as well. Like after this week is kind of rough
Yeah.
when it comes to like, I'm just scrounging for food to eat basically on a regular, like all the students who are here, like basically when it's break time or
Yeah.
meal time, it's like, what place is open? Where can you get
Yes,
food
I
right now?
know.
That's been my experience.
So for those who don't know, my wife was here last year giving a talk on suffering, and she told the focus people she needed a seat because she couldn't stand the
She
whole
couldn't
time
stand.
because her knees would dislocate, and she would hold
You
on.
dislocate.
When I think this has happened 3 or 4 times. When she has knelt for Eucharist, one of her knees dislocated. So she's had a ton of health issues. I
Yeah.
won't get into it.
Yeah.
But the point is, she's been doing carnivore for 3.5, 4 months right now, and she's
Yeah.
off all of her meds.
All
and
of them.
And people have said she looks totally different.
Well,
so,
yeah.
so I am doing, and I like this. I like not being like, I like not doing a resolution for the whole year
Yeah,
because
yeah.
and we're not going to do it.
Yep.
I like January.
Yep.
So I'm doing carnivore and whiskey.
That's great. See, that's the thing is like, I did, at the very beginning of this fall semester, I told our missionaries got to campus, the old missionaries came back, the new missionaries arrived, and as they arrived, I'm like, you guys, I just started, I'm doing carnivore. And
It feels great.
And
had
I
2
did it
steaks
for 3
yesterday.
days.
Oh, you did, and then you
And
fell off.
I was like, I need a beer. So now,
I'm feeling great.
Now because of January, I'm like, no, there is no beer. All
Yeah,
there is going to be
that's good.
meat and eggs, right? That's it?
Well, all animal products. So
Yeah.
you could do dairy, but like I did 2 steaks and that's it, and I felt great. But I think, like I look forward to the whiskey at the end of the day. That's my like reward,
Right.
right? And it's just like, I might have a single shot of whiskey, and that's
Right.
it. But it hits me harder than when I was
I
eating
imagine.
all the crap.
Yeah.
But why is that? I don't know why.
Well, I
it
think,
is.
one also reason is that like when you're intermittent fasting and you have any kind of beverage of any sort, I think that your body just absorbs it faster. So, but that's water, I'm like, whoop, got to go to the bathroom again.
Okay,
Or coffee,
got
like,
you.
okay, I feel more alive. No, my brother, speaking of my brother, he just retired
Yeah.
and from the military. And so we got him as siblings, we got him a cold plunge.
Oh, wonderful.
And he had said, like, when he a number of times he did the cold plunge, and he said that he would get up within the first 5 minutes, he'd get in the cold plunge. He worked up to 7 minutes
Good for
in the
him.
cold, and then he'd work out after that and warm up by just moving.
Joe
And-
Rogan said something recently that I thought was super profound.
Hey,
He said
before
the
you do that, can you, for my comfort, please do the "this is not medical advice" thing?
This
please?
is not medical advice. This is on Minecraft.
Well, here's the thing. My dad's a doctor, and my mom was a nurse, and my sister. I have 3 siblings who are doctors, so this is pretty close to.
But officially,
No, it's not.
this is
It's not.
kidding.
It's not.
No, I'm just
All right,
kidding.
so one thing he says that I really
I literally
like,
know nothing.
he says the hardest thing you do is the hardest thing you'll do.
Yeah.
So if the hardest thing you do is parallel parking, like you're not going to do anything
Right.
more interesting or difficult than that. So I do love this idea of throwing yourself into a freezing cold bath or having a sauna until you think you're going to die,
Yeah.
which you shouldn't do. That's not advice.
No, that's not
But,
advice either. Don't do that.
But there is something to that. And I think there's a kind of resurgence of that, isn't there?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know if Gen Z are cooler than most generations, but that I know, because the rest are dead. But it seems like they might be. There seems to be this divide. You either have the blue-haired, ripped jean Satanist women who are making themselves ugly. Like they weren't ugly and then they made themselves ugly. The fellas do it too. And then you've got these like radical Christians who are like, pornography sucks, I want to fast, I want to be better. I'm seeing a lot, like people in my son's generation, they're just way cooler than I was.
Well, there's a sense that, like you said, that I think I don't know. What do I know? Not medical stuff, that's for sure. But I also don't know when it comes to culture. I wonder if that pursuit of something uncomfortable is because, well, 2 things. One is because comfort has become boring, and I realize that it's mediocrity. And so the second part is, if I do something difficult, it's not for difficulty's sake. I think that's kind of that the chest beating kind of a. Sometimes when I listen to like someone like David Goggins, you got to be hard, you got to stay hard, man. Get out there and do the hard thing. Like, okay, that's fine, but there's a purpose to it, and the purpose to it has to be there. And that's one of the things, like when it comes to intermittent fasting versus spiritual fasting.
Yes.
I believe that it's an act of faith. So intermittent fasting is like, some of the studies show that because of this you are more alert. Because of this you're more da-da-da-da-da. And so I believe that there's an effect because of this cause. When it comes to spiritual fasting, the question I have to ask is, do I have faith that if I fast from coffee, if I fast from alcohol, if I fast from food, or whatever the thing is, fast from my device, that there is actually a spiritual effect?
It's like we have more certainty and confidence that the carnal benefits will be there, but we're not so sure about the spiritual.
Yeah, it's that same thing when it comes to prayer, is every time I pray, it's an act of faith. I have an act of faith that this is worth it. I'm taking this time that says, all I'm going to do right now is talk to the Lord or listen to his voice, and I'm having the confidence or the faith that matters. And again, same kind of thing, like I'm going to give up this one thing. I'll sleep on the floor tonight, whatever the thing is. Give me something super small. I'm not going to put, think about something as small as like I'm not going to sweeten my coffee.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give that to God. And I know it's small, but I trust that it matters to him.
Yeah. I want to give a big shout out to Exodus 90, who are just around the corner. If you're a fella and you want to be better than you currently are, because look at you, you're a shabby mess, walk over to the Exodus 90 booth and sign up. I'll head over there too.
And if you start today, it's Exodus 86.
Well, I crushed an Exodus 21 once upon a time.
Nice.
Like, you've
That's
never seen
awesome.
anybody crush it.
That is amazing. So originally Exodus, I think their literature originally said cold or lukewarm showers.
Okay.
Now it says cold showers. But I remember when it said or lukewarm showers. So when I did it, I was like, no, it said or lukewarm showers.
Yeah.
And so, speaking of soft.
So I have a question for you. We often hear, it's a bit different than what we've been talking about, but this is the problem with a 45-minute interview. I want to chat with you for 6 hours.
Yeah.
Come to Steubenville and have a much more enjoyable
I know,
chat.
that's what I want, but Thrsday doesn't let me.
Okay. Bastard.
That's a lie.
We often hear of the dangers of taking ourselves too seriously, and
Yeah.
rightly so. Peter Kraft is one of the most enjoyable men I've ever met because that man does not take himself too seriously.
Yeah.
But we don't often talk about the dangers of not taking ourselves seriously enough. And here's what I mean. I was just down in Australia, was invited there to go give some talks. And it occurred to me, I should not say I'm going to Sydney to give talks. I should say I've been invited by the bishop to proclaim the gospel in Sydney.
Right.
And that is what I did, and that's what I began to say. But there was something in me that wanted to retreat from that. Oh no, don't think you're too special.
Yeah.
I had a cigar with a priest the other day, and we were talking about this, and he said, and you may have heard this, and I'm sure you know that priests say this, yeah, I'm no Father Mike Schmitz. But he realized that was the wrong way to think. And it's like, so talk to us about why we should take ourselves more seriously. And that means how we dress. You'll see these fellas or Sheilas walking in with pajama pants. This is not acceptable. Don't do that. Or just the way they think about themselves in salvation history. Why is it that it's like almost like I put myself down because I'm either trying to be humble or I actually don't really believe that God has called me to anything great, and I really shouldn't talk like that.
Yeah.
But I think that's a lack of humility somehow.
Oh, totally is. I mean, well, I think both are a lack of humility. I think both taking yourself too seriously or taking yourself not seriously enough, both of those are a lack of humility, because what is humility? Humility is simply being willing to tell the truth. And so I want to go to the first thing of taking myself too seriously. There is an aspect where I was thinking about this even in getting ready for this conference. I'm like, man, I remember when I first conference, like I showed up all goofy and like I would do goofy stuff. I do a cartwheel because it's like, that's why I feel like doing a cartwheel. The students were like, Father, I do a cartwheel. I'm like, okay, no problem. And now if someone were to say that, I'd be like, I can't do a cartwheel.
I have the #1 podcast on Apple.
For at least 2 days.
We'll do a cartwheel together after this. We'll see whose is better.
I can only do a round off, or else I'll tear my hamstring.
Then let's not worry about it. Continue.
Okay, but that's the first part. Is I realized that there's an aspect of just a willingness, like you mentioned, Dr. Peter Kraft, right? This willingness to not take yourself so seriously and just enjoy whatever that. I don't know what is it. I mean, I still enjoy life, but there's that. There can be a preoccupation with what other people think, which is vanity, right? The vanity is the inordinate preoccupation with what other people think. So I ought to be aware of what other people think. That's having emotional intelligence. That's being kind to people. But the inordinate preoccupation with what other people think is the kind of thing that I think holds us back from true humility, where it's like, no, be goofy and look stupid without caring.
So how has your platform rising affected that? Because that must be it. Because it's like, it might be vanity, right? But it's also this sense like, okay, there's this responsibility upon me.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to discern, am I being responsible or am I being vain?
Let me tell you, okay, this is one of the weirdest social media exchanges. It was just so out of the blue. At one point, I was making an Ascension Presents video, and I coughed at the beginning of it. I'm like, oh, I got the black lung pop. Reference to Zoolander, right?
Uh-huh.
And so, and they put it in there, they edited it, and I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. I got this barrage of social media people. Do you realize that there is an orgy scene in Zoolander? Like, how dare you reference that movie? I'm like, actually, I didn't remember that because I watched it 20 years ago, but the movie's really funny. And that's all, but it was this thing of like, oh, wow, I better be careful. Because if I, accidentally reference something that was also connected with, and I'm like, man, and that was I don't think that was necessarily a matter of trying to be overly vain or something. It was like, oh, I've got to be careful. And I think that can sneak into or slip into something else, right? Where instead of being just, I'm taking care, because I think it's wise to be careful. I think it's loving to be careful with each other. You can simply, what's the word? Instead of just being careful, you can become fake, artificial.
Yes.
Artificial.
I often say that for podcasters, whoever, people giving talks, if you try to sound like somebody else, if you start slicing away parts of your personality to make it acceptable, you'll become as interesting as dentist art, you know,
right.
like, and no one will care.
Yeah.
So I need you to be big goofy you. I want to be whoever the hell I am, and then go, I said to you earlier, part of the problem with criticism is they're not wrong.
Right.
People are like, you suck. I'm like, I know that.
I know. Well, that's the thing is like, I really believe that if there's something that's truly false, it's like a pin. Like it can hurt, it pokes you and it kind of hurt. But then that's over. If it's just completely false, that's not true. But a lot of times the falsehood has a little bit of truth in it. And so it's like a barbed hook.
That's right.
Where it goes in, then it sticks there because I'm like, yeah, but it's true.
Yeah, and that's when you need a spiritual director.
Yeah, right. Only part
you.
of it's true. The whole thing isn't true. Especially some of those self-accusations and some of those self-condemnations, or other people saying something like, "You're a big idiot." Like, yeah, you're not wrong.
But you are rude.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. That I noticed this with your show. Is I think that our conversations that we used to have, like in between at conferences and stuff, more and more, I think I don't know if this is, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
You intentionally bring that behind stage to your show. In the sense of, like, you would say stuff like, I don't even know, like, why should we read the Bible? Like, you didn't say that, but I'm just saying it as an example. And then you'll bring that to your show, like, yeah, I mean, here's something I'm wrestling with. As opposed to saying, okay, here's my answer for why we should read the Bible. Yeah. And there's something that
I don't intentionally do that, but I hope that I do that.
Well, I thought you were like intentionally strive to be, I don't want to be artificial. We need to be careful, but I don't want to be artificial. So I'm going to strive to be more genuine, even if that means saying something that like, no.
I imagine that comedians feel how I sometimes feel after a podcast, like just like shame. Like, I shared too much. I shouldn't have said that. I feel like, but what's the alternative? That you're going to be so careful that you'll be plastic?
That's the thing is like, I think, okay, so one of the things that is so interesting, I remember talking with a couple, we were doing some marriage prep, and I was sharing with them how important it was to be careful with each other. And he kind of like, he tightened up a little bit, and I'm like, okay, here's what I think you just heard me say. I think you just heard me say, you need to be like artificial, that you can't be relaxed around your bride. That's not what I mean. I mean, be careful with her in the sense of don't just say or do whatever is coming out of your guts. You just like, take care of her. That's all I mean. Just take care of her. And I think there's something different between taking care of the people around us or who might be listening and being artificial and being like fake. So the people like, they buck against convention because it's like, well, I want to throw off the shackles of my, mores or the mores of this time.
And that could be just reactionary.
Yeah.
There's no virtue in that necessarily.
Right. Unless I'm striving to something truer and something actually even better than this whatever culture's holding us back from. But I don't know if that necessarily means like unbridled conversation or unbridled action, but I think it means bridled conversation and bridled action. So it's powerful, but it goes where I want it to go, and it does that sense of like bridled, like a horse.
Well, I'll get at it this way, and you tell me. I think one of the nice things about kind of being my own boss and starting this dinky little podcast is
Matt, can you just move in a little to the mic?
And he's the professional, right?
Yeah, I think. One of the joys of it is I don't have any kind of team telling me what to say. Now that can be dangerous. Yeah. But it does make it more exciting, I think.
Yeah, totally. Oh, there's a freedom there. There's a sense of, I think that's probably one of the reasons too, like when you have people on, you just like let them talk and you get to talk and respond and you get to ask the questions.
I want to be inside the conversation, not outside of it, knowing how it should go and what the right answers are. That's way more enjoyable.
So going back to what you said earlier, speaking about being on the conversation about not taking ourselves seriously enough.
Yes.
And that sense of like not realizing, I love how you said, I'm going to go give some talks. No, I'm going to proclaim the gospel back in Australia.
Amen.
Like, no, that's what I'm going to go do. You've heard that story. I'm not going to go through the whole thing because, you know what, where there's this cathedral being built, and the guy walks up to the one person carrying bricks and saying, "What are you doing?" "Well, I'm hauling these bricks from here to there." Next person, like, "What are you doing?" "Well, I'm stacking these bricks. I'm building this building." Third person, "What are you doing?" "I am fashioning a cathedral in which people will worship God for generations to
That's
come."
it.
Like that sense of like,
That's
you're
it.
doing the same task. How do you see yourself doing this? Like, no, I'm crafting a life. And that's why I just think,
Yeah.
like a thing like this, a thing like Seek, where there's all these college students. What are you doing? "I'm majoring in economics. Well, I'm getting my teaching degree. I'm pre-med." No, I am here to strive to do God's will in everything. I'm here to write a story, to become a kind of person in my life, in this moment, that I can be proud of, that God can be proud of. I mean, something like that. Just like
I
that
think
sense
that's
of
right.
like, what's your vision for your life?
I think that's right. How do you think our vision and view of the saints is going to change, let's say in 100 years from now?
Right.
Because St. Anthony of Padua, I don't think had a X account. You know,
Right.
like he wasn't, we don't have everything, we don't know all the stories about when he was really upset or when he said women aren't funny accidentally, stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like people, that's not out there.
Have you ever said something like that? Sorry, just kidding.
I know, I think it's true. I don't think there's any funny stand-up comedians. Haven't met one.
Okay, Ellen DeGeneres.
No, not funny.
Back in the 80s, she has a stand-up of a special that I'm guessing that if you would watch it.
Yeah, I'm open to
back
watching
in the 80s. Back in the 80s.
I said,
early 90s.
it's not a hill I want to die on. I
Yeah.
just think there's no funny stand-up female comedians. And I've got good reasons for that, which we could get into, but we won't, because this is about you, not me. Let's give advice we have these beautiful men and women out here. They're not all beautiful, but most of them look to be. Those are the beautiful, sorry. They all congregate together. What advice would you have for those open to priesthood or open to married life? And then I'll give some advice.
You know, I always say this about discernment. Ever since discernment's become popular, no one's made a decision.
Yeah, Father Bob Bedard.
So he told you that, you told me that, I say it all the
So
time.
good.
But I do give you credit. I say,
No,
this
you
priest
don't.
told Father,
I
to
stole
Father
it
Matt.
from a saint.
Priest told Matt Fradd once this. I would say that. I'd say that there's a reality that in discernment, there has to be a decision. And the image I always have is, so a lot of times, two images. One is algebra, and one is sighting in a gun. So the algebra image is, like I'm looking at this algebra problem, and I need to solve for X. But there's a Y, there's a Z, there's a W, and like, I just need more data. I actually can't solve for X right now with the amount of data that I have. And so, like going on a nun run, you know, visiting a convent, visiting a seminary, whatever that thing is, dating a girl, or dating a guy, that is trying to just get more data. And a lot of times, I know for myself, this is what I did. When I went to the seminary, I was putting so much pressure on myself because I heard people say, I showed up at the seminary and I knew.
Yeah.
Or I went to the convent and I was home.
It felt like home.
Yeah, and I was like, that's great. But when I went there, I just was like, okay, this is where you guys live. Okay, and this is what. And when you take the pressure off yourself and realize, okay, I'm just gathering data.
Yeah.
So as I'm praying, as I'm reading scripture, as I'm visiting places, talking to people, there's no pressure. I'm just gathering data. So I'm solving for X, but I don't know what W is yet. So go to the seminary, like, okay, this is what that's like. Okay, interesting. You can talk to a priest. Okay, that's what this is like. So that's one thing. One, take the pressure off yourself, just gathering data. The second one is, you ever sighted in a gun?
Have I what?
Ever sighted in a gun?
Yes.
So what people might not know is if you're going to go deer hunting or something like this, you typically have a rifle.
Right.
And the rifle's probably been in storage for a little bit since the last hunting season. So what you typically do a week or 3 before the season opens is you take that rifle to a range and you line it up, you put the crosshairs right on the target, and you don't say, okay, good, we're all good, and walk away. You put it right on the target, and you actually have to pull the trigger. And that's the thing people miss. Is like, well, I don't want to do it wrong. Well, no. This isn't opening day. You're not lining up a deer or an elk. Like, you're lining up the target. This is a low stakes situation.
Yeah.
This is not God calling you to make a leap. This is just take a step, line up on the target in a safe-ish, controlled environment, pull the trigger. Are you off? Great, make an adjustment. That's the thing, is like, so often we get into our minds that like, if I make the wrong decision, it's done. Well, yeah, on opening day, but it's not opening day today. This is your sighting in the gun. So Thomas Aquinas would talk about this, because I know how much you're like him, is he would say, like, that sense of, you line it up, pull the trigger, make an adjustment, line it up, pull the trigger, and that's life.
Yeah, not a direct quote from Aquinas, I don't think. But,
they didn't have rifles back then.
I got advice from a Capuchin bishop once, and I've said it before on the show, but it was so helpful, and I really want everyone to hear this. I was discerning the Capuchins, Franciscan Capuchins, and they're so cool looking, but I was afraid that I was attracted to them because they were cool looking.
Yeah.
And then I once had a Capuchin bishop say to me, without me saying that to him, because I hid that deep in the bowels of my soul, he said, don't be afraid if you're attracted to us because we look cool. He's like, when you're attracted to a woman, it's usually for superficial reasons, and that's good and fine.
Right.
It has to proceed past that. So I just want to say today, like, if there are religious orders here who look cool and that's why you're attracted to them, like, that's okay.
Right,
Don't
that's
you think?
okay. Totally.
Isn't that good advice?
It's such good advice. Because again, sometimes we short circuit the process by saying, well, I'm not starting with a pure intention yet. Oh, well, yeah, you won't.
You never will.
You never ever will.
Or you might, but...
I actually...
Okay.
Okay, so I knew a couple that were dating. He proposed to her. In the process of all this happening, he proposes, they're engaged to get married. He says, I don't find her attractive at all.
Yeah.
And he's like, he said,
did he tell her that? Or?
Well, he said, but I know that like she's such a good heart. She has such a, she's a noble person. So if I was a noble person, it shouldn't matter that I'm not attracted to her. Like the idea of kissing her doesn't like appeal to me at all.
Yes.
But I should be such a good man that doesn't matter.
No.
And thankfully, thanks be to God that that did not happen. That they broke up, and it was awesome. He's married, she's married. Other people who do find them attractive, and that's the great news.
That's way good.
But that sense of like he thought. No, if I was noble enough,
I would find the
enough,
ugliest, most annoying woman.
No, he thought
and
she
then
was
love
great,
her.
great character. He shouldn't be attracted to her external. Like, no, that's part of marriage. Is not only an attraction to the person, but to the person, because we're body and soul, So.
I have this advice. Now, it's a bit hyperbolic, but sometimes I like hyperbole because it ends up making a point. I think these people should consider quitting college, get married before they're ready, move into a bubble, and then have more children than they can afford. And I can defend all of those premises.
That's great.
Don't you think?
I don't know.
Like maybe stay in college, but maybe not. I chatted with a fella here yesterday, he might be out here. He said he just got married, he just got engaged. I went, good for you. And he said he's getting engaged and married in 2026. I'm like, that's a terrible idea. You will fornicate.
It's a long time.
You should quit anything and just marry her like next week. What are you doing?
I think my first or second year on campus, so it was 19 years ago, a freshman couple came up to me the fall of their freshman year and said, Father, we're engaged. Can we do marriage prep with you? And you marry us this summer. And I was like, okay, let's talk about this.
It's good that there were several months. I mean, you need to discern. You need to take time to.
But I'm like, they were freshmen. And they dated in high school.
It's beautiful.
And so basically, I was like, okay, well, let me just check some boxes first. Like, what are do your families know each other? Oh, they know each other really well. Do they approve of this? Like, oh yeah, they're on board. They really like this idea. Like, okay, at least the people who are in their lives were like, I don't know who you are. I met you literally an hour ago, right?
But they think it's a good idea. The people who love them.
Yep. So they get married between their freshman and sophomore year of college. They get pregnant their junior year of college. She gets into med school the year after they graduate. They went to med school. She was classmates with my little brother because my little brother went to med school there too. And there they are. They're the married couple with the baby who's like already 2, her first year of med school. Now they have, I think, maybe 4 or 5 kids. And they've been married 19 or 18 years.
Yeah.
And no one to look at that and say like, that's a great idea. Because you're signing,
dude.
And here's the thing, because you're signing yourself up for a lifetime of suffering and pain. But, pause. What do you think waiting is going to do?
Yeah, it's not like that's without the cross.
Exactly. Every vocation has the cross.
Yep.
And no, there's foolish crosses and there's wise crosses.
So
right?
I don't know if you know this about me. I got fired on my birthday a month before my wedding, which made me both unemployed and illegal.
Oh, really? I didn't know the illegal part.
Yeah, I was illegal and unemployed.
Part.
And I called my wife's dad. I'm like, sorry.
So.
And then we got married. It was awesome.
So
it's been very
need
hard,
my green
but
card
beautiful.
now.
Actually, this day, 18 years ago, I proposed to my wife.
Really?
Isn't that cool?
Congratulations.
Yeah. And a bit of advice to the fellas out there. You may have heard this, but I called my mate Mark Bennett because I was having some really cold feet. I'm like, should I asked for all these signs and I got none of them. And I'm like, I'm just a bit nervous. And these are his exact words over the phone to me. He said, are you What the friggin' hell are you talking about, you idiot? She's better than you anyway. You need to propose before she finds that out.
That's great.
That afternoon.
Really?
Yeah.
Today?
Today, 18 years ago.
That's amazing.
I'm so glad I did it.
There's something about, though, again, I especially something like this with our students, with everyone here, where there's a wisdom in making sure that the person you want to marry, that you check some of those boxes, right? So typically, even the secular world says the big four, that you have to have agreement on the big four. The big four are faith. You need to have agreement on faith. Family, finances, and intimacy issues. Like, these are 4 areas where if you are gonna saddle yourself with the other person and they're gonna saddle themselves with you, you have to have some place of agreement. You have to have the same worldview when it comes to faith, when it comes to family, when it comes to finances, and when it comes to intimacy issues. This is really, really important. If there's no red flags, that's wonderful. I think sometimes the image, though, is if we're in agreement on faith, like we're united, we're Catholics, we're passionate about the Lord, A, nothing else matters, and B, that means we're going to have a pain-free life. That means we're going to have a marriage unlike my parents, without all the heartache and all the suffering. But the reality, of course, is that every vocation is a call to come follow Jesus and die, in one way or another. And so, yes, hopefully you have agreement on these 4 areas. Hopefully that you're united in faith and family and finances and intimacy. But also that means so that you can weather those storms together with that faith, right? It means so that you're not necessarily alone in all those things, because you're marrying a broken person, and they're marrying a broken person. And like you even mentioned, like Cameron for the last 3 years. And it's like an amazing woman. You're united.
So good. I love her. She's my best friend, but it was brutal.
Having to carry the cross with her. And that's what's going to happen. I mean,
and a lot of the time I was just being dragged because I wasn't man enough to actually walk when God was giving me the grace to walk.
Yeah.
I'd like to say I did this with such grace. I loved her well. I was a shit a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I was not good.
I
was frustrated. I was angry. I had these thoughts like I didn't sign up for this, like all this stuff. And then I would think that, and I would realize that I thought that, and I'd feel shame for that.
Yeah.
And when you're in shame, it's not like, well, now I'm in a place to really love her well.
Right.
So thank God for Bob Schutz and his good ministry, because that helped us a great deal.
So much healing that's necessary. But I think even having that mindset of, even if I make all the right choices, we are going to have to pick up our cross.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to pick it up together.
But the problem is, you don't know that until the cross has been thrust upon you. Like, it's easy to nod sagely.
Yeah.
And go, I suspect that this will happen.
True.
But then it happens, you're like, I'm drowning. And you're like, yeah, that's what we meant. Oh, what do I do?
Yeah.
And it's...
But I think there's something about that sense of, like, so our intention is we're trying to build a church and a Newman Center up at Minnesota Duluth. And we want to name the church Our Lady of Victory. And I think Our Lady of Victory is awesome, not only for many reasons. One is because the patroness of our diocese is Our Lady of the Rosary, and her original name is Our Lady of Victory. The story behind it about this clash of cultures in Huron campuses, where we have a clash of cultures between the secularism and the church, but also because on a college campus, Our Lady of Victory is pretty cool. But as part of Our Lady of Victory, we need to have this, like, a prominent side chapel of some sort dedicated to Our Lady of Sorrows.
Okay.
And because it's like, okay, here's the thing. Yes, Jesus is victorious. That Jesus is on your side. He fights on your behalf, that he's the victor, he's the one who wins. Our Lady of Victory, awesome. At the same time, to convince and to put this in front of our students always, and yet your life will never be free of the cross. Like, even if you have the highest call to be Mary, the Mother of God, your life will never be free of sorrow.
Yeah, see, to push back on that.
Yeah.
All of that's true. And yet Mary was sinless. And a lot of the stuff I'm in is because of my own stupidity.
One of my favorite quotes in the world is, everything happens for a reason. Sometimes that reason is you're stupid and you make bad decisions.
Can I tell you an equally good quote
Yes.
that I know you will love? When God placed a call on your life, he factored in your stupidity.
Yes.
Ah.
Yes. Well, oh man, there's so many times, like, again, we're talking about, like, it seems like right now, other than mentioning Cameron and the struggle, and you mentioning, like, how sometimes you're just like I'm horrible. I'm not the husband that she needs right now.
Yeah.
I'm not sharing like my shame, and we're not going to either.
Yep.
But no, that sense of, like, there are times where I'm just like, Lord, how is this going to be worked out? Like, not just outside of me. Like, how are we going to raise the money to build this place? Or how are we going to reach these students? Like, those are great questions, and I get to say them out loud in public. there's many times, like I went to confession within the last year, and I was like, Father, I do not know how I am going to get unstuck from this place. I don't know how. And he said this. He said, it was so consoling. He said, you don't know, but God knows. And I was just like, oh. He said, you don't know how this story's going to play out, but He does. You don't know how you're going to get unstuck, but He does. And I was just like, oh, because there's a depth of like pain in some of these areas where I'm like, God, I don't know. How in the world are you going to heal this thing? How in the world are you going to do this? And I was so grateful. I come back to that many times. Just that you don't know, but He does.
One thing I want to ask you about is, I actually went to confession to my spiritual father, Father Boniface, who's the man recently. And I confessed a bunch of things that I was deeply ashamed about. And then one of the things I confessed, I just kind of threw it out there, was cynicism. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm just frustrated. I'm frustrated with the Pope. I'm frustrated with what's going on within the church. I'm frustrated with people who tell me that I'm wrong to be frustrated, or that I'm like a heretic because I'm just like have serious questions about, like, say, the recent document and things like that. And I said, I feel like I'm getting cynical. Yeah. And that's what he zoomed in on. And one of the things he said, which was so beautiful, is pray to Our Lady. She sees further than you see, and she's not cynical. Isn't that what you said? She sees further than you.
Wow, yeah.
She sees more than you. So she knows something you don't. It reminded me of Gandalf's, not even the wisest see how things end.
Yeah.
So here's my question. What is your advice for Catholics who are kind of disillusioned because of this pontificate, because of their bishop, their priest, their own stupidity? I don't know. How do we get beyond the platitudes? Because I feel like in the beginning we were saying things like, you don't leave Peter because of Judas, and that was enough back then.
Yeah.
But now it just feels insulting. So what is your advice to people who are either ready to leave the church, they're willing to go to orthodoxy because they're like, that's the next best bet, maybe I can talk myself into that, or they're like, okay, I'm not going to go anywhere, but I'm so disheartened I don't know what to do?
Well, a couple things. One thing is, I would say that the truth that you don't leave Peter because of Judas is still true, even if you've heard it a bunch of times. Like, it's still true even if the situation, circumstances have changed. So we have to ask the question, like, let me like back up and say, are there things that I'm like, what in the world? Like that, I think that's a foolish thing to say. I think that's a foolish thing to do. I think that's in error in some ways, whatever the thing is. But if I have studied the history of the church, I realize, okay, there's a lot of, this isn't anything new. And this is part of the thing of, like, again, that's not meant to be a platitude. I just think that truth doesn't change because of our circumstances. And so if it is true that Jesus Christ founded his church and He's protected it for 2,000 years and led it for 2,000 years, that's not going to change because I'm tired. That's not going to change because I'm frustrated. It's not going to change because I'm having to deal with this for the 10th year or 20th, whatever the thing is. And I would say that I mean, we know that when it comes to, well, any part of our life, is at the beginning of a season. Job, the story of Job, the beginning of his enter into suffering and desolation, he says, blessed be the name of the Lord. You know, I was born naked, I'll die naked, blessed be the name of the Lord. The suffering continues, and then he starts saying, like, Lord, I don't get this, I'm angry, I'm going to talk to you. He doesn't curse God, but his song changes. But God didn't change in that. He just got tired. And that's the thing, is I think, like, okay, has the truth changed, or am I just tired of living in a broken world? And I think that that's what I go back to, is when again, not even the wise can see all ends. And I think platitudes get revealed for being empty if they're empty, but they're also revealed to be true if they're true. But the question I have to ask in those moments is, has truth changed, or am I just tired?
That is a really great advice. Thank you very much. Praise God. I'd like you to speak to this. I think we all are spending emotional and intellectual energy on things that we have no control over.
Yes.
And it's
That's the other thing I was
exhausting
gonna say.
us to the point that we no longer put emotional and intellectual energy into the things that God has given us authority over.
Yeah.
So if I spend my time worried about the Pope, or worried about the Sedevacantists, or worried about what's happening in the war in Israel or Ukraine, I don't know if I can do a single thing about that, but I have been given authority over my wife and my children. I've been commanded to love them. Talk to that.
That's it.
And not just from your point of view, because we all do this. Like I wanna love Scripture more than I love political radio.
Right. So I know this. This is one of the things that happens to all of us. Our circle of interest vastly outstrips our circle of influence. That's just 100%. I mean, always. And so what I need to be reminded of is because I get ramped up too. I'm like, I have the arguments in my head of like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to say this, I can't believe this. And I'm arguing with people I just listen to on the radio, or I don't listen to radio, but like on the internet or whatever. And I realize, wait a second, this happens so often. Typically, well, it happens all the time, but a lot of times it happens when I'm trying to write a talk or write a homily. That here I'm writing the homily, writing the talk. This is God's word for this weekend or whatever the thing is. And I'm writing, and then I get this wild hair about Israel. I get the wild hair about what you're talking about, the Pope, or this and I start having this argument about this whole thing, and I realize, wait, that is not what God has asked me to do. I need to write a homily for this weekend. And so, like, kind of like you're saying, when it comes to, wait, is that what God is calling me to? Or, okay, here is my wife, here are my kids, here are our students who are knocking at the door. We're like, okay, they need you now. No one needs to hear what you, I mean, here's the PG version of a saying my uncle would always say. He said this so often that I'm like, he said, opinions are like noses. They all smell. He said something else. But I'm like, yeah, that's it. Who cares about my opinion? Nobody cares about people might say, like, Father, weigh in on this. The moment I weigh in on what I think versus what Scripture says or the church says is the moment when people say, we no longer care what you think, because now it's a limited insight as opposed to eternal wisdom. And so I would just say, like, keeps coming back to that place of nobody cares what you think. But these people do care whether you show up or not.
Amen.
That's the thing.
That's right.
Nobody cares what you think. And if you find people who care what you think, you're going to have a bunch of cheerleaders and a bunch of haters.
Yeah.
Neither of which are worth that amount of time and that amount of effort. Because the cheerleaders will just always cheer on your anger, and the haters will always hate whatever else it is. You know, I think, you know, sometimes we see people like this. I remember listening to a priest who kind of got popular for being angry, and he was giving this kind of talk on the internet, but there was no one there in the crowd, and it was one of those things where he's just like delivering it to like the camera, right? And he gave one of these lines that in a rally, people would be like, yeah, but he gave the line like, haha, and there was no one in the room to go, yay, and he was like, okay, move on, because that's not really the truth. That's just your talking point that your cheerleaders like to hear.
Yeah.
Like that's your anger that you like summarize for them and you put it into a pithy statement. And I was like, oh, this shows how hollow just sharing my opinion is, and catering to my cheerleaders or angering my haters is. I don't know, it's so stupid.
I love it.
It makes me mad. Actually, thanks, Matt. You got me mad. I appreciate it.
Well, one thing that we don't have to be mad over, and they didn't ask me to do this, but I want everybody here to please download the Ascension app. I'm not saying this because they're paying me, and they are paying me.
Okay, but I can say it, and they're not paying me.
It is unreal.
It's so good.
It's my new favorite app.
Yep, same here. It is.
The level of thought that went into this thing is insane.
On so many levels.
Yes.
It is. You have the entire Bible. You have the entire Catechism. That's completely searchable. Like, so how many of you have ever read the Catechism? Okay, so how many times do you see the little like footnote or the side note where it's like, oh, it also references Catechism paragraph 2262. And you're like, oh, but if you want to flip to it, you have to flip, keep your finger in the first page, flip. And they're okay, oh, that's neat, flip. This has a thing where you just tap on that, it pulls it up without losing your page, without losing your spot, pulls it up, like, oh, that's what that references. Close, you're right back. And the Bible, so many...
It's so hard to explain. That's why I want people to download it, just try it out. Because I mean, I went to Australia, I listened to all those old Bible studies,
Ascension.com/Fradd.
Ascension.com/Fradd.
Don't use your phone. Sign up on your desktop.
That way they like me more. Although they're around there, they should hear this. No, but all the old Bible studies. Like I used to have Jeff Caven's 24 CD pack. It's all on the app.
All of them are.
It's unreal.
And you can like
I listened to it on the way to Australia.
You mentioned this in one of your shows. You had a commercial for this, and you had mentioned that Genesis chapter 1. One of the questions that comes up all the time is evolution. We're like, oh yeah. Click on this. Here's someone explaining. Here's what the Catholic Church believes about this whole thing. So good. That's so good.
I don't know how much time we have left, but one of the questions a local supporter asked me to ask you was about pornography. And I know a lot of us struggle with this because we were born into a pornified culture and our parents were stupid and gave us iPads without locking them down. And this stuff is just thrown at us from all the big networks. And it's a struggle for our generation in a way that it probably wasn't for those who lived 50, 100 years ago. I'd love your advice. You know, I had someone write to me today on Locals and they said, I've been free for 2 years, thank you, Jesus. But he said, I can't say I hate it. Like there are times I really, really want it. Just in general, give us some advice.
One thing, I know that you have Victory.
Yeah. It's,
Victory app.
Well,
is right?
No,
is
go to strive21.com is the,
Right, and so there's those resources. But one of the things /Matt. One thing that I would always say, and maybe I've heard you say this or other people say this, and I just keep repeating it, is that one of the reasons why pornography is so powerful, other than our concupiscence and our attraction to evil and our distorted, we're made for love, but we have this distorted version of it, is because pornography is available, it's everywhere, it is affordable, it's basically free, and it's anonymous. Like these 3 A's, right? It's available, it's affordable, it's anonymous. And so, if there's a way to make it unavailable, well, we've taken out one of the legs of the stool that has so much power over us. So we can have internet blockers and those things, which are helpful, but if you're good at your computer, you can know how to work around an internet blocker. That can be something. You can't make it cost you anything, but you can get rid of the anonymity. That's one of the reasons why I always recommend, this is not a commercial upon commercial, but Covenant Eyes is so helpful. I am so many people's accountability partners. I have accountability partners, like I'm part of Covenant Eyes. I don't get paid by them, I just use their product because it's one of those things where even if you can't block the site, this Covenant Eyes program tracks where you go and then sends an email to the person you have as your accountability partner saying, here's where this person just went. And there's something so good about that, realizing like you've just taken out the anonymity and introduced accountability. And that is so powerful. Now, that doesn't heal the heart. That's the big thing. But it does give a person some reprieve. It gives them a little bit of breathing room to be able to work on their heart. So if I can get rid of the availability or get rid of the anonymity, then it gives me room for like something like Strive 21, where I get to say, okay, now, what is going on in my heart that's brought me to this place? Like, what is it I'm actually looking for, as opposed to like, here's the pattern, go to confession on Saturday, I'm good for a couple days, Tuesday night, I fall. Okay, wait till Saturday, go to confession, wait a couple days, Wednesday night, hey, even better. Just give yourself some grace by building up that nature. I think you're getting rid of the availability, which is hard, but getting the accountability, I think, is so much more powerful.
Have you heard of Father Mark Foley? He's a Carmelite, writes a ton of books. Carmelite tables over there have amazing books.
Yeah.
But one thing he said that I keep referring to is, you know, and we all have this experience, right, as we grow in the Lord, and we still struggle with those vices, and we think to ourselves, when will I ever be free of this? And he said, only when I was able to accept the answer, never, was I able to just kind of breathe a sigh of relief. And he says to his spiritual directees, don't make a decision to sort of eradicate or sin from your life. Okay, that sounded bad. I didn't quote that well. Go read the book. But what he means is just make a decision to, you know, make the right decision in the moment, okay? It's one thing to say, I'll never struggle again, I'll never do that again. But it's a better thing to say, today, what kind of decisions do I have to make to be a good man or a good woman, you know? Like that's, I think freedom from pornography is the wrong way to think of it, because the destination as Christians is heaven, you know, and you're not going to wake up one day and go, oh my gosh, this is a very different sensation. I think I'm free. It's like you won't have that. It's not like a finish line. It's a daily choice.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, every person I've ever talked to who's in recovery, I mean, what's the one of the things they say is like it's day by day.
Oh, I got to do a shout out. If you're a lovely woman struggling with pornography, check out magdalaministries.org, because they are unbelievable and they're doing beautiful work with women who are hooked on porn and want to be free.
That's the thing too, is like, again, for how many years every pornography talk was, hey guys, guys. And they, I mean, women's hearts are as broken as men's hearts. And so we're all broken. But that's the thing is like, I think sometimes there's two ways we've gotten rid of shame. One is becoming shameless and saying like, oh, it doesn't matter. Your porn stars are now stars. Like, well, I don't know if that's the case. So becoming shameless isn't the answer, but also stepping out from the shadows towards the light, like towards the Lord, and not being ashamed, not being bound or paralyzed by shame, to be able to say, actually, I need to bring this to confession. I might need to bring this to a trusted sister or a trusted brother. because I can't do this alone. Stepping out from that shame is so important, because or else what do? We just spend our lives hiding.
You've been a priest for long enough, and you know enough priests to know the answer to what I'm about to ask you, and I think the answer will be beneficial to those here. What is your opinion of somebody who comes to confession and they share things that are like objectively shameful and things that they're deeply ashamed of? What do you think of that person when they do that?
I'm so proud of them. Like that's it. I just get to be in this place of like, oh my gosh. I mean, and especially when people bring something like that, you realize this was really hard for them to say. Some ways, the more difficult it was for them to say, the more proud I am. It's just like.
And would you say that's true of other priests as well?
I hope so. I don't know of any.
I think if I were a priest, I'd be so annoyed at people coming to confession and like dancing around things. Like, shut up, that's not why we're here. Go to war on your ego, that's why we're here.
No, the funny one is when people come to confession, this is kind of a little tip. People come to confession and say, Father, lust. Okay, you realize that encompasses a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
We need to be more specific. It's like saying anger. Like, what do you mean anger? Well, I killed 5 people. Okay, I mean, anger can be anything from like I swore at somebody on the street to I killed 10 people, right? So lust can be anything from like, I gave in some lustful thoughts as I was or, the other extreme. And like, you have to name, that's the only frustration sometimes. It's like, okay, and it's not even a frustration, it's more like this, more like, okay, I hear, you mentioned lust. Do you want to name the actual sin?
I remember when I became a Christian at 17 and was still struggling with sexual sins in a serious way, I would say I was disrespectful to my body. What the hell does that mean? You ate too many donuts? What did you do?
Right. You're like, you stupid hand, you're dumb.
Yeah, that's right. I'm disrespecting you. I want to encourage our brothers and sisters here, if you are in a state of serious sin, don't walk, run to confession. And don't feel awkward about grabbing a priest and saying, I'm sorry, it's not an option for you to leave. You're my father. Be a father to me. Hear my confession now.
That's the thing, is I always say there's 2 questions every priest loves to hear. The first question is, Father, how do I become Catholic? The second question is, Father, will you hear my confession? And I remember there's a couple times, I distinctly remember one time in college, I grabbed a priest by the shoulders and said, listen to me. No, I grabbed, it was before Mass. I was like, Father, can I go to confession quick? And he said, no, you can't. And he wasn't being a jerk. It was just like, Mass starts in 3 minutes and I have to get, but I know what that feels like. I also know what it's like to be in the line as the people ahead of you are taking 5 ever. And you're like, what in the world is we're counting down the time before Mass? And you're like, just come on. And then you're the next one. And he's like, I'm sorry, I got to go to Mass. And feeling because of that, like, that's a sign. God's done. Like his mercy's over. That's not what that means. I know it's happened to a lot of us here. That's not what that means. It just means the time was up, and it gives us an opportunity. It gave me an opportunity to be like, okay, I'm going to Mass now. I'm not going to be able to receive, but I get to feel the pain of losing Jesus. I get to feel the pain. What if I was stuck here forever? I'm not stuck here forever, but I get to actually enter into this. What if I was stuck here forever? I don't want to be here forever. But so, grab the priests. Again, they're here because
I'm so grateful to you and to priests. Thank you, priests. Let's give the priests a round of applause.
Yeah.
Because it's not easy to be a married man or a married woman in this society, and for goodness sake, it's not easy to be a good priest. And there are so many terrific priests, and we owe them a beer, if they want one, or just gratitude
February
at the
1st.
very least.
February 1st.
February 1st, yeah.
But that sense of like, my friend Nick, he always says, if you fall into the confessional. If you fall, just fall into the confessional. And the
Not
Lord,
literally, but yes.
But no, my response is God is proud of you. I'm proud of you.
I got a question for you, because a lot of people are telling me they're struggling with this. I don't know if it's a generational thing. A lot of people are talking about social anxiety.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't like people and I want to be away from them, but I don't consider that like social anxiety.
Right.
So what is your advice? Because people were asking me like how to overcome it, and I'm like, I don't know. I was like, you're a good-looking man. What are you going to be anxious about, or something like that? What is social anxiety? Why are people experiencing it more, and what should they do about it?
Caveat, this is not medical advice. But my understanding of social anxiety would be something along the lines of going back to vanity, and that excessive preoccupation with what other people are thinking. So I remember hearing this, that there's a psychologist who said that, he said, the parts of the brain that get lit up by depression is the same part of the brain that gets lit up when you think about yourself. So being preoccupied with oneself is akin, neurologically, to depression. And so in a conversation with someone else, if I find myself being really uncomfortable in a conversation, it's most often because I'm thinking about myself more than I'm thinking about them. And so similarly with this conversation, if I remember that you exist, I'm like, how do I sound? Then I feel weird. But if I'm talking with you and thinking about what you're saying, and here you are in front of me, then like, oh yeah, we're having a conversation. Tell me more about yourself. And so I think sometimes, again, clinical anxiety is a whole other beast. But that sense of being able to say, is it possible? And the anxiety's coming because every interaction I'm having, I'm thinking about me.
Yeah.
So one step forward, and this could be one step forward, is when I meet someone new, someone old, whoever this is, I want to think about them. If I find my mind going back to myself and how I'm feeling, how I'm doing, how I'm coming across.
And I would say, not just think about them, but how can I put them at ease?
Oh yeah.
That's the question. How do I make them at ease?
Yeah, right. Now
like if you're a dude and you're approaching a woman, you're trying to, how do I make them not feel frightened?
Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
I haven't figured that out, but.
But there's something about that. One of the things that happens here that I'm really grateful because people come up and like with you too, and they're like, hey, thank you for your show, thanks for all your talks and everything. I'm so grateful for that. One of the things I want to do with every person is just like, what's your name?
Yeah.
Because where are you from? Like, it's because there's something about this. Like, I think too many of us, we walk through life. We have a kind of motto at UMD, at the Newman Center. It's seen, known, loved. Because too many of our students walk around campus and they're unseen, and they're unknown, and they're unloved. And so the idea is, okay, in our community, we don't do this perfectly, but I just want to see you. I want you to know that you're seen. I want you to know that you're known. I want you to know that you're loved. But if I'm thinking about myself, then that doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
So social anxiety, I think, again, you might even say, here, man, you even mentioned, like, here's a good-looking guy. Here's a guy or a gal who's got it all, or a Sheila who's got it all together. That's what you say, right? Dananda? Sometimes.
Although I think when I left Australia, we said that, but apparently they don't say it now, and so even Australians are confused that I say that. Continue.
You have a bloke or a Sheila, and they're attractive. One of the things is how many people who are successful, who are attractive, who are competent in some area, a lot of their life becomes image management. And so every time I interact with somebody, I've got to protect that image.
Yeah.
And so again, my thoughts go back to myself and, you look like you have it all together. Well, I want you to keep thinking that I have it all together by protecting this image. And so again, that goes back to the sense of like those who, whether you don't appear to be someone who'd be competent, or maybe you really appear to be someone who's competent, either way, we can be afflicted by the same thing, which is I'm uncomfortable talking to someone because I need to manage your impression of me.
Okay, Thrsday has texted me something. Can I read it out loud? You should give that, I'm just going to do it. You should give that advice I learned about giving women your number. All right, so here's not my number. Here's what he meant. So Thrsday has learned this trick. Rather than saying to a woman,
Can I have your number?
Can I have your number? He writes down a ton of numbers on little cards, and he gives it to them.
A ton is a will.
So you have a picture of yourself, and then you put it on a telephone pole, and the
So
number is
really weird.
I had my headshot professionally airbrushed.
None of this is true.
No. So what I heard is instead of like walking up to a young woman and immediately asking for like her number or a date, and then putting her on the spot.
And got no rizz.
Well, there's that. Okay.
Don't do that. Embrace being old.
No cap.
Yeah, no, don't.
Do I sound a little sus?
We're cooler than them because we've been here longer.
Father, you don't have to do that. And also,
did you hear the laughter
say it quickly.
I got?
Say it quickly.
Okay. So you write down your number and you give your number, so there's no pressure in the moment.
Yeah.
That's what you should do.
And then,
although doesn't
that
put a different type of pressure on the woman? Here's a question. All right, ladies, listen to me.
Okay.
Would you rather a man say, "Can I have your number," or him give you his number and say, "Call me later"? We're going to do it like a shout competition. Wait, the first one where he says, "Give me your number." All right. Or would you rather him give you his number in a non-creepily way? All right. Okay. There you go. That lady. She looks lovely.
But that sense of like, then she texts and you're like, new phone, who did?
But it kind of puts the pressure on her to reach out to you. I don't like that.
Yeah, I mean, well, you initiated though.
Yeah, that's
She
true.
receives and responds. Oh yeah, this is
But what
TOB.
if when you give her the number, a ton of cards fall out so that she knows this is just a thing? That
Here's the thing.
You're not writing them down ahead of time. I'm not like.
Oh, okay. You're not like photocopying.
I'm not Joey from Friends.
How you doing?
You're made Pope next week. And you're like, wow, that was super surprising.
Yeah.
I thought they just elected cardinals. What do you do?
So,
Like, what are some things you do? What are some things you don't do? Here's what I do, just to kind of warm you up, because you weren't expecting that question.
Nope.
I'm definitely wearing the red slippers.
Yeah.
And the freaking tiara. And I want my papal apartment back. All right. And then I just go hide in a room, and I don't do anything. And if I preach, I only read the church fathers. And maybe every month I give people an old encyclical to read, and I don't put anything else out there, and I just drink espresso and hang out with my bride.
That's a great answer, because I was literally going to say, nothing. In the sense of like, no, here's the thing. I know, I have a pretty strong sense that they'll never ask me to be a bishop for a number of reasons. One is I don't have that skill set. That's not in my... Secondly, only if the Lord really needed to purify me would he make me wear those big, big hats. I just do not like, I think they look ridiculous. Just gonna say that right now. The mitre, I don't get it. I think it's, wow, that was a hot take. No one liked that one.
Make that a short. Keep going.
But yeah, if you're the Pope, if I was made the Pope, it would be a matter of just like you said, is I would probably stink at the governance part of being a bishop, because that's a very important part of the bishop's role. He has to govern, and that's one of the things is we've had great popes.
No. What would you do? You might stink at it, sure, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's not the question. The question is someone is telling you you are the Pope now.
I would surround myself by some really wise people like Matt Fradd,
No,
Mike Gormley.
Definitely Gormley. He's a wise
some other
fella.
folks. No, but I think that there would be. I think just like you said, I would just preach.
From the church fathers, though.
Yeah, no, there'd be no innovation whatsoever.
I got to wrap up. Can everyone give Father Mike Schmitz an applause and thank him for being a good man, a good priest?
Thanks, you guys.
I'm going to head to the Exodus 90 booth, and I'm happy to meet folks for a while, because if you're a fella and you're not doing Exodus 90, you can do it right now. You can start today, and I'd love you to do it. God bless you. Thank you so much.
Can I say
love
one
you.
thing?
Yes.
So, you guys, at the Ascension booth, there is a recreation of my living room. I don't know if you saw it, if you walked past that already. But there is, because it's in the living room, that's where we filmed the Ascension videos, there's a little photo of my niece, Sophia, and I right next to each other, and I'm like, Soph, you made it to this big, she's like, is that for real? Is everyone seeing that? So if you have the chance, take a picture with me and my niece, Sophia, in that little picture in my living room. That would be awesome.
And if you're not yet subscribed to Pints with Aquinas, do it right now. See ya.
Amen.
Thank you, everybody.